Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Okay, hello, I'm talking to Viva Lee today. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm excellent. And I'm talking to Kirsten Carthew. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you so much.
Okay, beautiful. And the movie's Polaris.
Polaris.
Yes.
Like rhymes with Solaris. Maybe some of your viewers know that film. Yeah.
Cool. So I would love to know the first kernel of creativity that got the ball rolling.
First kernel.
Yeah.
For sure there's a whole history of a short film that, inspired the story world. Honestly, I think for me, story worlds start with color palettes, and I just love the winter color palette, white on white, and a reference film for me for this film was Road Warrior.
Yeah.
And there are so many like orange tones because it's the desert, and just I love being able to see that kind of combination of worlds. And in the short film Fish Out of Water, it was a lot of grays and whites, but different kinds of whites. Snow has different colors. I mean, nowadays you can go to a paint store and there are like 100 different kinds of white paint, right? So I think the color palette was pretty a first kernel, since you asked about the first kernel.
Nice.
Yeah.
And were you with the short Viva?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay.
I was casted way later.
Way later. So tell me about Licking Up. How tell me about the casting process. What was that like?
Well, when they casted it twice, I believe. I auditioned for the first part, and I auditioned for it the first time, and it was like this improv scene where I was like talking to trees. It was very interesting, very romantical. It was very nice and fun. And then nothing happened, and then they casted for it again. And I rolled out my ottomans, but they're wheelie ottomans, okay? So I shoved rubber flip-flops underneath, and I jumped on them. And I was like screaming, and I was yelling, and like fighting towards the camera, and it was super fun. So I got called back, and I did a chemistry read.
Yeah, you were so intense in this movie. It's nice to meet you. Like you're chilled out now. You're way less primal. It's nice to know.
That's good. I hope I'm not too primal.
No, it was. I liked it. You were sort of like a heavy metal star to me, like a lot of like death grunts. I was watching it with a buddy of mine who's like really into metal, and he's like, "This is the heavy metal movie."
I actually studied some heavy metal, how they actually do some of that, like.
Yeah.
I listened to like Slipknot and Korn and stuff. And I even watched a few videos on like how heavy metalists like go like from like here to like. So
This is amazing.
Thank you.
Does it hurt?
I do lots of vocal warm-ups, lots of vocal training. If I'm doing lots of like screaming or lots of straining stuff, it will hurt after a long time. But I try to be very careful and safe with it. I'm also a VO artist, so I try to control that. Go in my diaphragm, go through my face. Try not to use my throat too much, but if I need to in a scene, I will. But I'll be careful.
That's beautiful. So I love mysticism in movies, and this is a very like pro mystic movie, or not even pro. It is what it is, right? And I love the trees. How the tree is like a character. It's like a regenerative like force or whatever. So tell me about just the practical effects of getting the tree to move.
Yeah, I mean they're puppeteered.
Okay.
We have worked with a really great team of special effects artists, talking about like a heavy metal movie who look like heavy metal stars, the Blood Brothers, and they, for some of the trees, we're sort of literally kind of puppeteering them, and then for others where they couldn't be in the screen, we literally just we tried a bunch of things, but the simplest things often just work. And we took a fishing line. It's transparent, but it's very strong. And there's one scene where the branches of the tree are pulled apart, so we just had people literally off camera just pulling the strings apart to make that happen. And one of the things I wanted to do in the film, and we didn't have a huge budget, but still worked really hard to achieve, was to do as many special effects in camera as possible.
Cool.
So that, it's hard to do a North Star period, but we had to do some VFX, but the goal was really to try to do as much in camera as possible. So that's why we opted for these like very practical, simple effects. You might have seen in films from the silent era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like with the physical gestures and the different languages also was definitely related to some silent movies. Was like Nosferatu? Was there any like ones in particular that stood out?
I'm glad you said that. Nosferatu and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah,
For me,
right.
like German expressionist films, I always have loved them. So they're a little bit more dramatic, and I think the music, sometimes you hear them with music, sometimes you don't, depending. Like I've got, you go hear played by an orchestra or something, or creating things. So I really get a lot from silent films, and so there's definitely that legacy folded into this inspiration as well.
It's the 100-year anniversary of Nosferatu.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Good thing we're talking.
There it is.
Okay.
But I definitely felt like while I was watching this movie, it was like when it was done, it's like you kind of when you're walking out, sometimes I'm like, what did I think about that? Like how do I sum it up? Now that it's done. And what I was saying to myself is that this is a very singular movie. It seems like it's its own thing, and that's I think that's awesome. It's like a legit compliment.
I'm just trying not to put words in your mouth. That's a fantastic compliment. Yeah.
But one thing you were saying on stage that I thought was cool is you're a fan of Greek myths.
Oh yeah.
So I would love to know how some of that was worked in.
It's so there's so many stories that I was raised with, and a lot of them were. I love astronomy and looking at the night sky, and so you learn the story of like the Pleiades and Orion, and I always love that the stars make constellations, and there are stories to them, and there are stories across so many, like every culture. I don't want to say that for sure, but everywhere in the world I've lived, people have stories about things in the sky. For me, Greek mythology was part of my education and upbringing, and I think the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper. Probably everyone knows the Big Dipper really obviously. It's like, there's the Big Dipper. It's really easy as a kid to be like, oh, I see it, And for me, their names is kind of like the play on words is going, oh, okay, it's the Big Dipper, but that's Ursa Major. Ursa meaning water bear, and the bear that is a water bear is the polar bear, and then there's the Little Dipper, and that's the little polar bear. And like, of course, because I'd already been thinking Sumi, polar bear, and then I was like, I have the story now. I understand, and this is a reimagineer telling of how the Little Dipper found her home in the sky, because Polaris is the North Star. It's in the constellation of the Little Dipper, and for me, sort of globally, the idea that this North Star, which so many people have tattooed and explorers, of all kinds use as a point of reference to navigate the world. It's because it's a fixed star. It's seemingly fixed in the sky. And I think we really need a global shift, like changes on so many fronts, particularly the environment, but also socially. And the idea that Sumi's following the North Star because the North Star's on the move. Like if the North Star is moving, like the whole world is shifting. And of course it is, because this frozen world came to be because of so many shifts. But, where she lands, hopefully that feeling at the end of the film, there's a transition phase. Sumi, transitions, but for me, it's very hopeful. It's you feel that like, oh, she's there. She's up there. Not there. Yeah.
Wow, I'm getting like the cheat sheet to the movie.
Yeah.
Mitch said you almost lost your toe. How's your toe?
Oh, my toe's great. That was in my short film. That was not in this film. This film, I spent the money. I got all the warm clothes, and you really needed to. It was a very it's a very hard shoot to film outdoors on whatever the temperature is. But when it's cold and you're outside, and particularly as a director, you cannot bail. Like you cannot be like,
But you can't die either.
Yeah, I mean, nobody, no, it never got so cold that we couldn't film. I mean,
Yeah.
there is a sort of an understanding. People, I was raised in the North, and it's like you can do a lot more because you're familiar with that kind of work environment. But there are temperatures where it's just not permissible, it's not ethical,
Sure.
to work, and also things don't function. Snowmobiles break down, things don't work. We have Viva, who's a total pro, but Viva in her I was like, I don't know if I should give away your age, but she was 11 when we filmed.
Okay.
And you can't be asking 11-year-old kids to brave the elements all
Yes,
if
you
it's going to
can.
be
I will
minus
do
40.
it. I will do it,
But
no
that's
matter
the thing.
what.
Because she would, you need to have rules in place because
Yeah.
it's not ethical.
No.
Tell me about some of what were some of the more intense days?
Well, most of the days were very beautiful. I never had much of a problem. I'd say more of the intense days would maybe be at the start, because we're just testing stuff out, like finding what layers I can wear underneath. We ended up doing like this kind of like wetsuit underneath, and then snow pants, and then a jacket, and then the overlayer of the costume. So it was pretty good, pretty warm. I'd say the most intense scene I shot on the film would be the final scene. It's a very emotional scene. First time doing water stunts, which is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. You were down there for a while too.
I came up. I came over there.
Yeah.
They would not let me drown, of course.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one of the more intense scenes.
I really liked your scenes with the older woman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Miss Muriel is such a lovely, amazing person, an incredible actor.
Yeah.
I love to film with her. She's such a radiant person.
I like when she put on the black mask and you start laughing.
That was a very fun scene. I liked the scenes with her because they were a different side of Sumi. She seemed more like a kid again, and not just like a warrior trying to survive. She had moments where I was like, oh, she's also a kid, Right.
Okay, guys, it was a lot of fun talking to you. I would love for you to end the interview in some of the, like, as your character would, in the dialectic in the movie.
Okay. I don't want to make too much noise. We're outside right now.
Okay. Beautiful. I like that. All right.